Welcome back to Unplug with Mel. I'm your host, Mel Mosier. Last episode, we had the incredible Mike Moore, who shared his story on perseverance and success. If you haven't listened to it yet, you're in for a real treat. But we're not stopping there, y'all. We have an exciting new guest, all the way from Switzerland, Suzanne Lucas, the EvilHR lady, who has a knack for improv HR and is ready to share her unique insights. And here's the best part. You can catch our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. You can also reach out to network with us on LinkedIn. So let's embark on this journey of inspiration together. Back to Unplug with Mel. I'm your host, Mel Mosier, and today I have a special honor to just welcome our special guest, Suzanne Lucas. She's actually right now currently in Switzerland, which I did not know this. But from Texas to Switzerland, we welcome you to Unplug with Mel. Suzanne, how are you doing this morning?
I am splendid and impressed that you got up so early.
I'm an early bird now in my 40s, I guess you could say. But I'm also more like an exhaustion pigeon because I usually don't go to bed till like 11 o'clock. So it's fun. I love meeting the new guest. Most of my previous guests, I've kind of had a connection and kind of known them through it. So for me to know you, I'm just fangirling over here.
Oh, you're
So
sweet.
we're going to get right into it. You get to tell our audience a little bit about yourself before we get into our questions.
Well, I'm Suzanne Lucas. I'm better known as the evil HR lady, and I do all things HR.
All things HR. So do I. I just love. So what people don't know is that you have a Facebook group called the Evil HR Lady, and I giggle when I found it because I was like, I love that someone's like owning the normal stereotype to HR. And what's this group about? So I started joining it and reading people's posts and seeing the support and also the humor in there because it's like this is what we went through today. Can you believe it? And we're all like, no, I'm really thankful for the job I have.
It's such a great group. It's
It's
such a great
great.
group
Wealth
with
of
great
knowledge. So that's how I found you. And so I did the research. I missed the important part that you lived in Switzerland,
people.
but I thought, how cool was that? That's Switzerland's on my bucket list.
It's
Um,
a great place. Yeah, it's a great place.
what's the weather over there?
Well, at the moment, it's cold and rainy. I live in Basel,
Uh-huh.
which I am 150 meters. That'd be about 2 blocks for you Americans um, from the Rhine River, and
Okay.
so the Rhine really tempers our weather here. So we don't get snow very often, and when we do, it doesn't last for more than a day or whatever where I live. So people think about Switzerland as being this cold and snowy place, and it is if you're up in the mountains. But where I am, it's very temperate. The weather is very similar to like a Philadelphia.
Okay.
Um,
Well, surprisingly, Texas and West Texas, because I'm in Midland, is in the 30 degrees and it's raining.
oh, well, we are probably 65 and raining. So,
We have a we have a freeze warning today.
oh,
And
goodness gracious.
so I predict that our winter is going to be wet and cold, but we had the worst summer over here with like I think it was 45 days of triple degree weather.
Oh,
So I'm not complaining of the cold right now. I'm pretty sure if it stayed this way in long term, I would, but I enjoyed yesterday when the weather came in and I got to wear a sweater. We don't get to wear sweaters out here, rarely we do. So I love it. I love the differences. I love that you joined us. What time is it over there?
it is 11 o'clock here, 11
Awesome.
a.m.
So it's still morning there. So good. When I say morning, I'm not wrong technically
Nope,
yet.
it's still morning.
Well, we're going to get right into our questions. It'll go quickly before we know it. The first thing with I like to ask people first to get to know you is an important journey or a key moment in or experience that shaped who you are today. What brought Suzanne Lucas into HR and even as the evil HR lady?
Well, what brought me into HR was actually desperation. So I was in a PhD program for political science,
Okay.
and I hated it. Um, I I had gone into the program because I wanted to be a political science professor. I love teaching, but I found out that academia doesn't care about teaching. It's like an afterthought. It's all about the research, and no offense to my friends in political science, but the research is boring. We were spending all of this money, government grants, to prove that Republicans were more conservative than Democrats. It's like, why? Why are we doing this? Like, this is dumb.
Insane. Yeah.
And it just was a bad fit. It was a bad fit for me. I didn't like it. And so I left after I finished my master's degree. And when was the last time that you saw, help wanted political scientists needed?
Right? I can see that. I can see that.
And so I had no idea what to do because when your life plan is academia, like that was my plan. I was going to be a political science professor. Um, and now what? And so really what I did is I finally sat down and thought, why did I want to be a political science professor? And it was like because I like teaching. And I said, well, where can I teach? But I don't have like any teaching certificates, and I don't particularly care for other people's children. So I didn't want to teach like elementary school. I like adults. Um,
I'm the
and I
same
was
way.
like, "Oh, training and development, that's in HR." So I went to a temp agency and I said, "I will do anything in an HR department." And they placed me as an admin, covering a maternity leave in an HR department and a compensation and benefits department. And then I did that for 3 months. And then I went to another HR placement covering another maternity leave for another HR admin in like a generalist office in a small credit union. And so after those 6 months, I applied for a job um, at a grocery store chain, the best grocery store ever, Wegmans. They were looking for someone with 5 years of HR experience who could do statistics. I had 6 months of HR admin experience, but I could do statistics because
Mhm.
graduate school.
Mhm.
And, I got the job in HR that way, and my boss, when he hired me, he said, "Listen, you are not qualified for this job, but you are the only person we could find that could do statistics."
I mean, I just took statistics in last no, 2 semesters ago because I'm working on my degree. And, yeah, that's a feat just to have that. I'd hire you, because a lot
Yeah.
of HRs do not have you had multiple years of, working through statistics with political science.
Yeah, yeah. So I had, the graduate level statistics and
Yeah.
all of that. So I started there and, I built their HR analytics program because that didn't exist before. This was 1999. HR analytics was a very new field,
Mhm.
so new that I ended up speaking at the New York State SHRM convention in 2000. So at this point, I had a year's experience in HR, 6 months experience doing HR analytics, and I'm presenting at the New York State SHRM because
Wow.
I was the only person that they could find in the whole freaking state of New York that
Wow.
could do statistics
Eh,
in HR. And now that's totally changed, and analytics are a huge part. And there's not a lot of like super statistical analysis outside of compensation and benefits. We do turnover and all of that, but it's not so much predictive as it is looking backwards. Um, but that's how I landed in HR. And then I loved it and I'm very pleased. And if I had my life to do over again, I wouldn't have gone to graduate school in political science. I would have gone in organizational behavior, but I did not. I did.
Hey, we find out along our journey. Hindsight, right? For hindsight.
That's right. That's how
So
I landed
you've
in
been
HR.
doing HR since 1998, is that correct?
Yeah, 1999.
1999. Well, that's like 24, almost 25 years now, right? Am I doing my
Mhm.
I'm not great at
Yep. Yep, I'm a little bit old.
Getting there. Well, that's just a wealth of knowledge you've got there. I love it. Um, I love it. I love that it shaped who you are. I'm similar. I love that we have some commonality in there because I knew I wanted to teach, but I didn't want to teach young children. Definitely, but there might be a future for me being a professor.
Right.
But I wanted to do more just training and development, the soft skills, the how to humanize yourself a little bit more, empathy and emotional intelligence type of thing. But I never knew that being in HR would be where I needed to be. I did a lot of odd jobs while raising my children, and then I did oil and gas. And so I was a logistics manager and a customer service manager. Always dealt with people and streamline things, but never really thought that HR would come my way in a sorts. And I've just been in HR since 2020 during COVID. I
Oh,
finally
great
got it.
time to start.
Great. It was fun, fantastic, you know.
Trial by fire.
But it was really well. The company that took me on um, taught me a lot in the first year. You really do learn a lot through whatever industry you go into with HR, and then you start to accolade yourself in yourself. I've been there 3. I love it. I feel like HR should have been my degree as well going forward. So I'm actually going back for management and probably organizational leadership.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
so I love, and I didn't think that either coming out of high school. Let me grow up and be an HR leader. No.
Well, I didn't even have any clue of
Yep.
what HR did, and
Mhm.
I had a real advantage in going to work for Wegmans in that if, they're always in the top 100 companies to work for Fortune, usually in the top 5, often number 1, and and the Fortune top 100 companies to work for is actually a legitimate award. A lot of
Mm.
the awards is just pay to play, right?
Right.
Um, but one of the things that Fortune does is they survey random employees. So the company can't fudge the data because Fortune surveys the employees.
That's awesome.
And um, so I was literally trained by the best HR in the world.
That's
You know,
awesome.
I learned how to do good HR. Um, one of the things that they had everybody do, but everybody in the company did this when I was there, is that every single person had to go work in a store. Um,
I love that.
and so even though I was an HR analyst sitting in a queue working on a computer, I had to go spend, I don't remember, 3 weeks, 4 weeks in a store, stocking shelves, running a cash register, serving pizza. They made me work in the seafood, which I don't like seafood. It was terrible. The only place they didn't have me work was bakery, and I think that's because the bakery manager was like, "Stop it with this no talent people. I don't want people that
You need
'cause
people that can bake and do the stuff the
yeah,
old.
we don't need the corporate people in here. Go away."
Yeah.
Uh,
I love the fact that you got to experience what the employees are going through. I think that helps HR.
absolutely,
I think that
and
helps us a lot in HR.
it helps so much because one of the things that they did is they never had stupid policies. Because
Oh, wow.
everybody making the
Yeah.
policies had done the jobs, and I compare it to when I was in college, I worked at Kmart, which no longer exists,
I know.
um, and we were required to wear dress shoes,
Yeah.
and
Makes sense.
that policy would never happen at Wegmans because everybody in corporate has spent 8 hours on their feet
Yeah.
in the store, so they would never come up with the, "You have to wear dress shoes."
I love it. You get in the mindset of what your employees need, what not not what you think they need based
Right,
on no knowledge. You have no experience, no knowledge. Let's just create a policy for it. No,
right.
you're down in the trenches with them. You're not going to advocate for dress shoes when you're on your feet for that long. It won't happen.
Exactly,
I love
you're
it.
not going to, whereas, the people at Kmart were probably like, "Well, it looks nicer."
Yeah. Oh, aesthetically, yeah. Just wear the most uncomfortable dress shoes you can for 8-hour shifts. Yeah,
Yeah,
lovely. I love it. Well, with that, we go into the next one because obviously, finishing your degree, not what you want to do. You go into the HR. Was there a significant setback in there where you just or a challenge where you faced in that way that you knew you had to overcome? Or you look back, it really wasn't a setback, it catapulted you to your success today? You
Well,
know how
at
we
that
look back at
point,
things.
I mean, there definitely was, and a setback because I really didn't know what to do. And my parents were very kindly supporting me. Um, and I was applying for jobs, but I was of this attitude of, well, I have a master's degree. I deserve
Mm,
a good job, right? That little pompous, I
yeah.
just have a master's degree, so therefore I deserve. And finally, after about 4 months of my parents paying my rent, um, my parents said, "This is your last check, and if you don't find a job, you're welcome to come home."
Ah,
And the last thing I wanted was to move back in with my parents.
I feel
That
you.
would be
Mhm.
mm-mm. And so I had a job within the week because that's when I went to the temp agency.
Ah,
So I was
gotcha.
finally like, "Okay, I don't wanna move home, so this is what I did." And, it was that little bit of push from my parents being like, "That's no, uh-uh,
And
we're not."
humbling yourself to go to the temp agency and take whatever job you could in HR.
Right.
Yeah.
And that actually worked out great. And so I'm very grateful that my parents got tired of funding me. Um, and so yeah, that was actually it's probably 5 months because I remember for Father's Day, I sent my dad a copy of my offer letter, and I was like,
I did
"Look,
it,
I
Dad.
finally have a job."
Did it, Dad. I love it. Well, that's great too because in the midst, it's a setback thinking, "Oh crap, where's my rent going to come for next month? What am I supposed to do? And then why am I getting pressured to make this go quicker? It's not on me. I'm trying to figure it out, Mom and Dad." And
Right.
then they're encouraging you to find a solution, which is a great
Right.
coaching method. It's a great
But
coaching.
if they hadn't have been like,
Yeah,
"That's it," I probably would still be living off them 25 years later, you know?
yeah, yeah. There has
Um,
to be a limit to anyone helping anyone out to the next step.
right, and I needed that kick in the pants. I
And
needed that kick
they knew you, that they're your kid, so
right,
they knew you. And so they knew that this would encourage you to land back on your feet somewhere, and you did.
I did.
And in the moments, in HR, all these years and stuff, where there's moments of doubt or maybe a goof failure or even something that made you doubt that you were qualified to continue in HR? And if so, how did you stay motivated and maintain your focus?
Well, I mean, over 24 years, yes. There's approximately 1,000,000 times when I screwed up, or, was like, "What have I gotten myself
Into.
into?" Um And I think that's something that happens with all of us. One of the things that I've learned the older I've gotten is that everybody is just doing the best that they can.
Mhm.
And and everyone also is winging it. There's so much winging it going on in the world. And we're just assuming that everybody else is like, oh, this is exactly going to plan. No, we're all winging it. You don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know where you're going to land next. Um, there's a lot of that, but specific things, when so I worked in corporate HR until 2009. I left the grocery store and went to pharma. Um, love, love Wegmans with my whole soul, but the grocery store industry doesn't pay nearly as much as pharma does. So I left for pharma, and then in 2009, my husband got a job here in Switzerland. And so the plan was I quit. We're going to be here for 2 to 3 years. I'm going to stay home with the kids. Um, then we're going to go back to America. well, that was 2009. It is 2023, and you can
Yeah,
see that
it did not
and
happen
still
that way.
did not happen that way, and he's no longer a husband. And so, I was just doing Evil HR Lady for fun while I was working in pharma. I was writing my blog, and then when I was here in 2010, CBS News reached out to me and said, "Hey, we'd like you to write for us." So that's why I started writing professionally for them, and and then I wasn't making a whole lot of money. That might shock you that the freelance writers don't make a whole lot of money.
Oh, no, I know they don't. You know?
And and so, it was okay. My husband had a big pharma job and all was well in the world until I found out that he was sleeping with multiple coworkers
Mm,
um and so that's it. We are done. And now suddenly I've got to support myself and my kids.
yeah,
And
that's a moment of doubt and what's next and
yeah, and I'd been out of the corporate world for a long time. My specialty is US employment law.
mm,
You can bet that there's not too many HR jobs here in Switzerland that are English speaking and require an expertise in employment law. In US employment law. I don't know
yeah,
squat about Swiss employment law.
I see
Um,
it, yeah.
and so I had to build my evil HR lady thing. This is what I've got to do. This is my only real option, right?
Right.
And so that was really, really scary. To go from being, this is a fun hobby to this is a business that I have to support.
Where did the evil HR lady name came from? Was that something that you resonated with or something that was just told about you or something you
No,
always knew with the condemnation of HR?
fortunately, no one has said that about me,
Good.
at least not to my face. One never knows what employees are saying. But no, when I started writing the Evil HR Lady blog, it was in 2006. I was working in pharma. Blogs were a very new thing. Social media didn't really exist. I mean, there was like MySpace and Facebook existed, but it was very
Very new.
small.
Yeah.
Nobody I knew did it. Um, so I wanted to start this blog, and I knew that my company would not approve.
Mm.
So I needed a pseudonym. Because I wanted to be an HR advice columnist. I grew up every morning. My parents subscribed to two papers, a morning and an evening paper, and the morning paper had Ann Landers, and the evening paper had Dear Abby, and one of them also had Miss Manners. I don't remember which, but I read all of those religiously. I love the advice columns, so that's what I wanted to do. And then when the blogs came out, I'm like, well, I can just do that. There's nothing stopping me. No one has to hire me. I can just start doing it. So I needed a name, and I had been reading a another blog called The Evil Editor, which was an editor at a publishing house that was, of course, writing under a pseudonym. And I thought that the evil fit really well with people's perception of HR because everybody hates HR. And
Mhm.
so that's how the name came about. And it was something that I decided in maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Um, and it was the best marketing choice I could have ever made because it's very memorable.
Yeah.
And,
And the
I was like,
reality is, even though it's still 2023 now,
yeah,
HR does not always get the best name out there, so people can still catch on to the evil HR lady. It's, tongue in cheek, and I love it. Um,
exactly.
well, after everything going on at home in Switzerland, well, obviously you're still there, so you decided to stay and not come back to the States?
Well, I am not allowed to leave with my children. So
Gotcha.
there's international child custody treaties, and they require both parents to agree or the kids stay where they are. So I wanted to come back to the US, but my ex husband said no. And I went to court, and the court said no. And so I was stuck here. And so again, this is a choice that I didn't make. I
Right.
didn't choose to stay here. Um, but I refuse to be someone who is unhappy.
I love
And and so I was like, okay, I am here. I am going to make the best of it. And I have. I
you have.
absolutely have.
You definitely adapted to what you had to and made something out of evil HR lady all these years so that you could, prosper and still take care of what you needed to. But I love how you said it that, it happened to you. You didn't, make it happen. And there's so many things in everyone's journey where like for me, I lost my career in the oil and gas during 2020, out here in West Texas. It bottomed out. It was negative.
Sure.
And so as a single mom of 2 little ones still at home, that was like the 3rd bust I had experienced in my career, and I was like, "I'm done with this. I cannot
Right.
keep picking myself back up from the bottom." And this time, it wasn't even the oil and gas's fault, it was a pandemic. I was kind of angry, I was like
Right.
exhausted. And when I started realizing that I can make less because that's what COVID taught me, like I'm still making it on I could take a pay cut and I can get a job that had better hours. And I just needed someone to take a chance on me. So I redid my resume. Not like I didn't have enough time on my hands. Everything was shut down. And landed back on my feet in HR because that HR community is very open and understanding and will teach and train even someone in entry level. But where I landed, they acknowledged my experience from prior jobs and job descriptions and companies that, well, no, she doesn't have to start at rock bottom here or entry level. We'll start her here and we'll give her some time to get her feet wet and see where we're going. And I love that though no one made COVID like happen to them. Everyone experienced some type of change, whether they were going remote, going hybrid, getting ill from it, you know, we bounce back by the adaptability of like someone saying, I refuse to be someone who's unhappy. It's a choice. That's the
It's
choice we have. We didn't have a choice on what happened, but we have a choice on what we do about it. And I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Um, in this mindset of your story and everything like that, did you have a moment when you launched Evil HR Lady and you're trying to make this work that you have a particular inspiring or memorable victory in there where you knew that you were going to be okay in this. This is what you're called to do now.
well, I mean, I don't know if I had a moment. I mean, because I had been Evil HR had existed and I was building it for years and years and years. I started the blog in 2006 and I started writing for CBS in 2009. So it wasn't like, okay, I have to do this. It was crap, I have to make more money at
Mm,
this. And actually COVID ended up being a pretty big blessing financially for me. The bottom fell out of advertising
mhm,
revenue. Just that went away, and still has not recovered to pre-pandemic levels.
mhm. It's true.
That was terrible. But um, because something that I'm really good at is translating legalese into human.
I love that.
And so, and this is something that, when I say I should have just studied organizational behavior instead of political science, well, my emphasis in political science was judicial politics. So I've read thousands of court cases, I've interpreted thousands of court cases, and that actually has been very helpful in my career because I understand how the court system works and all of that. And so, with the rules and regulations just changing rapidly,
Mhm,
uh, and I was writing about it at Inc. magazine, where I write now. And a company in Texas, actually, Career Learning, reached out to me and they're like, "Could you do a webinar?" about this. And I was like, well, I've never done a webinar, but okay, sure, I'll try anything. Um, and they're going to pay me $500, which is a lot of money,
Yeah.
for, I'm like, I'll take it. And, and so I did one webinar from them. They got a tremendous response. And so then for the entire of 2020, I was doing 2 or 3 webinars a month on COVID because every week the CDC would change their guidelines.
Oh yeah.
And you in HR, all the HR people that were trying to keep their businesses afloat, you didn't have time to follow all of that.
No.
And so I followed all of that, and I would update my webinars, and we would just run them and run them and run them and run them and run them, and it was very good for me, as I said, financially, because I was able to to um, to present all of these webinars. And that was something that really boosted me financially, because I was like, oh, I can do webinars. And now the bulk of my income comes from webinars. I work with a bunch of different companies. I do multiple webinars every week on a whole variety of subjects, not COVID anymore because nobody cares. But I do a lot of chat GPT,
Yep.
compliance things, FMLA, FLSA. One of my favorite webinars is the 5 employment laws that managers need to know about. Um, that's a really fun one because it just goes over the very basics for managers, not necessarily HR people. And that was, one of those situations where, again, a crisis fell in our lap, with COVID, and
Mhm.
I was able to use that to launch a new side of Evil HR Lady, because before Evil HR Lady was just writing, with an occasional speech.
Mm.
And now, I actually, tomorrow I fly to Connecticut to be a keynote speaker at the CBIA Connecticut something. I don't know what the B is. Anyway, it's in the Connecticut Employment Law Conference that I'm going to go and give a keynote speech on using improv comedy as a tool for um, employment law.
I love that. I love it. I love comedy and realize. I love that you can take the legalese and make it human because
Yeah,
in HR, people don't realize how much law we need to be aware of and know, even though it's almost like a pseudo law degree in a way.
yeah,
Yes.
it really is. There's so much legal
Mhm.
nastiness in HR, and I'm really fortunate. I have this incredible network of employment lawyers,
Mm.
just the nicest people you'll ever meet, which lawyers have a bad reputation too.
Yep.
Um, but and that have guided me through this. Is one of the most interesting things is during COVID, I'm part of a WhatsApp group, that's me and 5 employment lawyers. And so this WhatsApp group at the start of COVID and all these regulations and everything, watching them go back and forth with each other as they're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then I got to just benefit
Mhm.
from them. And they were awesome. When there was something I couldn't figure out, I could text them and be like, hey, what's the deal with this? And they would give me an answer. So how nice is that?
It's extremely nice of them to do that. Plus, you're right. All of the HR leaders who were dealing with the employer or the company itself, and then all the staff, everything was being filtered through HR. Like we were already supposed to know all the answers.
Yeah.
And I got very confident in saying, I'm not sure right now. Let me research and I will get back with you before speaking out of turn because they were taking everything in HR like the Bible and like CDC changed sometimes every hour.
Yeah.
It felt like, and then, you
And they
know,
didn't tell you they were making a change. They would
no,
just update their website, but no indication that this was an updated thing.
yes, and so we try to filter it the best we could where HR still has to do the due diligence. Our main goal is to not have the employer sued at this time, period. They're not violating human rights or anything like that. But at the same time, we're still trying to keep the doors open.
Right.
Multiple companies were filling it. All of a sudden, everyone knew who HR was. If you were just the lady in the hallway who did payroll or benefits, now they're like, no, that's HR. You know,
Right.
so there was some recognition. And so in yours, trying to launch what you were going to do with improv HR as well as the evil HR. Like, I can see how COVID benefited in a way because you now had a tool, a niche that we all desperately needed. And I think that's how I found the evil HR lady because I'm an HR of one. And in COVID, I took it, in the fire. And I was like, I do not want to look like I don't know what I'm doing, but I don't know what I'm doing. So it's a great resource for us to go in and ask a question, a stupid question to we feel might be stupid or whatever, but get several different answers. And once you see the theme that this is the way it should be done, okay, between that and SHRM and other HR resources and networks, we have a support system out there that helps us. And so
Yeah.
it helps us not feel like we're in it alone, whether it's employment lawyers, whether it's other HRs who have been in there for a decade longer than I have, and even sometimes your employer. If you tell them like, "Look, we're going through this together, boss. I don't know the answer, but I will get it to you to the best of my ability." And that's just being transparent in it. We don't like you said earlier, we don't know what we're doing or we don't know what's going to happen. We're doing the best with what we've got.
And it was completely new for all of us,
Mhm.
and we just had to jump in, and that was one of the things that I really came to love the Evil HR Lady Facebook group during COVID, because there are so many HR departments of one or two, um, and I feel like that group really became the HR team for so many people.
So many people. And
So
even
many
if
people.
if someone would ask the question that we were too afraid to ask,
Yeah.
and then there was already answers. You just go in there and find it. I'm like, "Oh, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one going through that right now." And
Yeah.
that's huge. That's huge in any industry, any platform that you have, any career that you have, you know that you're not the only one going through it, which kind of leads us into our next question here. What advice would you give to others who are listening today who are looking to share their own stories or pursue their passions? Maybe they took a degree that they are miserable with, but now they have a job because of that degree and they're not happy. What would you tell them?
Well, first, I would go back to choose to be a person who is happy.
Mhm.
If you don't like where you are and who you are, the only person that can fix that is you.
Mhm.
If you're just waiting for, your boss to recognize your brilliance and promote you, or if you're just waiting for the best job to come along, or you're waiting for your knight in shining armor to come along, or whatever,
They don't exist.
they don't exist.
Just gonna put that out there. Leave Disney alone.
That's right. They that you're not going to be happy, and it's not going to get better. So you have to make the choice to make a change.
Mhm.
And yeah, you know what? Some jobs are terrible. But I think often we place too much emphasis on our job for our self worth. Um,
Good.
you know, um, I once I'm a big fan of Mike Rowe, who did Dirty Jobs, and now he runs
Yes, I like him too.
a nonprofit on essentially blue collar work. And one of his Dirty Jobs episodes was this pig farmer in Nevada who would buy all the leftovers from the Las Vegas buffets and feed the pigs.
Mhm.
And I could be making this part up, but I'm pretty sure it's true. Nobody fact checked me. But the guy was like the pig farmer, he was like, I chose this because I looked at the market and I said I could make money from this. It's not that he had this deep and abiding love of pigs or a deep and abiding love of buying garbage. Um, he's like, this I can make money from it, but it's not my whole life. And I think so often we feel like our whole lives are wrapped up in our jobs. I mean, when people introduce yourself, what's your name? What do you do?
Yes.
We don't say, oh, what's your name and what's your favorite book or what television shows do you watch? We have what do you do for a living? We're so wrapped up in that. So if you're miserable in your job, you need to find something outside of that. But also, you can change. And I know right now the market is terrible in a lot of areas, especially for HR. If you have an HR job and you are looking for a different HR job, do not quit your current HR job until you have the next one because the market for HR jobs is terrible right now. Do not leave the one that you're in until you have another one lined up. Don't. This is my official advice to you. The HR market is terrible. Um, you might not be able to change right now, um, but you can also do things to change yourself. Um, take a class. Don't necessarily take a career class. Honestly, one of the best things I did for me was take an improv comedy class. And they only did it. I went kicking and screaming. I did not want to do it. I did it as a favor to a friend. That's why I did it. It was a favor to a friend and it was life changing. And it also, theoretically had nothing to do with work. Of course, I immediately saw the parallels. Um, and I now use those. Like I said, I'm doing this improv your employment law on Thursday in Connecticut, which I'm very excited about. Of course, when this airs, that'll be passed. But anyway, regardless, um, it's I was able to do that, but it was stepping outside of what do you do for a living and doing something else.
Doing
And I
something for
really think
fun,
that's
taking the
important.
pressure off.
Yeah.
Also realizing that while you have the job that you have, hold on to what's positive about it. Don't let the negative eat you up alive.
Yeah, and
Because
you know what? Maybe the only positive is you can pay your rent.
yeah,
You
there's
know
some
what?
sort of positive in there.
Paying your rent is awesome.
It's huge. It's
It's
huge. You have
huge.
a roof over your head because your job allows you to pay for it. And
Exactly.
just changing the mindset on that. I thank you for that. Well, the last really like deep question I ask here is, recognizing that which we've gone over, that we all need support and guidance on our journey. Do you have a few people that you'd like to shout out here that helped create you in a way with the Evil HR Lady, mentors, family? Like, who's got your six, and who played that significant role with you?
Oh my goodness, there's so many people, so many people. A big shout out to Pamela Kruger, who was the one that recruited me to work at
Mhm.
CBS.
There you go.
Um, as a freelancer, because she recognized that I had this talent and skill and it made me because I had never considered making money off of Evil HR Lady. So huge thanks to Pamela Kruger. And then I have come into so many mentors over my whole career because I've been doing this a long time.
Mhm.
Um, Katrina Collier, she's a recruiter, and she's a trainer, and she has really helped me to build my business. Um, Brenda Neckvattle, who taught me that you don't need permission to do things, like you can just do them.
I love
There's
that. Good
there's so
advice,
many things
Brenda.
that you can just do.
Yeah.
Um, Brenda and I, summer of 2021, we just rented conference space in 3 different cities in the US and just started advertising. No one invited us. We just did it. It turns out you can just do it. You don't have to be special. Just
No,
do it.
just do it.
Um,
I love it. That's
um,
how this podcast got started. I wanted to do it,
exactly.
and I'm doing it.
Exactly. You can just do it.
Yep.
And honestly, it just sounds dumb that somebody needed to teach me that. But I was
Right.
always waiting for someone to tell me, "Okay, it's
Or give
okay to
us
do this."
permission. Yes. Yes. And I think we were taught that way for a while that we're not allowed to step out of our comfort zones to be bold and brave and do it because we need to ask for some sort of permission. But when we just get up and do it, it
We
gets
can just do
done.
it. We can just do it.
Yeah, I love it.
And there's so many of those things. You know what? If I wanted to go back and get a degree in organizational behavior, I could just do it. I don't
Mhm.
need permission from anybody. Um, you know, if 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 I want to rent a conference room and hold a conference and try to get people to come, I can do it.
You can do it.
Um, there's there's just so much that we sit around waiting for other people to give us permission, and you don't have to do that.
It's having
Um,
faith in yourself that knowing that if you put your mind to it, you will make it will happen. You
yeah,
know, a lot of it is we wanting other people to put into us that, hey, Mel, you know, you're really good at this. You should do this. And then all of a sudden we take on the horns. No, if you have it in your heart, or it won't let you sleep at night. You know, like you really need this next step in your journey, whether career or personally. Get up and do it. I love it. It's so
get up and
simple.
do it. Don't
It's so
wait.
simple. Don't wait. Life's too short. If
And
anything,
and
life
if you fail, that's okay.
it's okay.
It's okay.
Right there.
It's
That's the
like
whole part of this podcast.
if you fail, all right. Do you know how many times I've failed? Approximately 1,000,000. So
It's
it's
okay.
fine.
But see, the cool thing here, we may fail, but we still don't identify as a failure
Right. No,
because we're
because we're
still doing
awesome.
it. We're still doing it. We're still trying the next thing. We're still getting out there. We're not hiding away because we failed at the 100 million things or whatever. We're still going to figure out what works best for us. And I love that. Well, our time is almost up. And so I have two fun questions. Of course, the title of this podcast is Unplug with Mel. So the first one had to be, what do you choose to unplug? You know, we have busy lives, we're raising children, we're trying our next big thing, we're just doing it. What do you do to unplug? Is it just the improv comedy now, or do you do more?
Well, I do watch television, and but I do improv comedy, and I serve on the board of a community theater,
Mm,
and we are putting on our annual Christmas panto, which is a British thing, even though we're in Switzerland.
I love it.
And I have a bit part in that because I'm not really an actress, but the people are so fun, and I just love everything about it. It's community theater, so it's all hands on deck. Yesterday afternoon, I went and helped the costume director. We're pulling costumes out of the costume room and trying to assign costumes to all of the cast members, and just I just do this stuff. So I do community theater, I do improv comedy, and when this play is over in December, then starting again, I am taking another class on doing stand-up comedy.
All
And stand-up
right.
comedy is really hard and scary, and I've only done it once, and I wore pink pants, which it turns out that on the stage with the lights, it looked like I was wearing no pants. So that was fun.
Hey, perfect for a comedian thing.
When I looked at the video, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I swear I'm wearing pants."
Oh, I love that for you. I love that you found, you know, something that excites you outside of work, but I also love how you said that it parallels into what you do now.
Yeah.
I think a lot of our passions and want our list will benefit our career. I love to travel. I don't get to do it often because I still have two very younger children, but when I do, I feel like it's exhilarating. People are like, how is traveling exhilarating? I'm like, because I'm going somewhere new.
Oh, I love travel.
You know, I'm
I
going to
love
do
it.
new things, new people. I'm actually offloading the pressures of being a single mom, and I get to be Mel and with around adults. When you put Mel into a room full of adults, things change. Well, the last question I have for you, Suzanne, is almost, I don't know if you want to go over the quote that you gave me because I loved it. I loved the post that you posted with it. I actually used it at my job with the yes and part of it, or if you have another piece of advice that you've heard or received that influenced you in general, whether it just be in your career or your personal life, almost like Nike, just do it. But do you want to go over that quote you gave, or do you have
Well,
another one you want to
you'll
use?
have to tell me the quote I gave you because I don't
You
have
did
it.
the one where in a room full of people, you want to be the yes and person.
Okay. Well, that is so yes and is a principle of improv. And so the concept is you can't ever say that what the person before you said was wrong. So if we're doing an improv sketch and I say, Mel, what a lovely cat you're holding. Suddenly you have to be holding the cat and petting it or whatever. You can't say, I'm not holding a cat. And you can't say, this isn't a cat, this is a porcupine. Like, you have to accept, I have a cat. You can then decide what to do with that cat. You can pet the cat, you can put the cat down, you can say, oh, I'm allergic to the cat, I'm getting rid of it, whatever, but you have to deal with the cat.
Hmm.
And I think so often, so many of us spend time arguing against, well, this isn't a cat, or I didn't want a cat in the first place. Okay, you didn't want a cat, but you have a cat. So now you have to deal with it. And and we spend so much time looking backward and complaining about backwards instead of moving forward. And I think this is such an important principle, especially in HR. HR, contrary to what employees think, we're not the decision makers,
Right.
right?
Right. It's
We're
a very
advisors,
yep.
but the CEO makes the final decision. You know, we write the policy, but we can't implement it without the CEO's sign off on it,
Yep.
right?
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes leadership does things that we disagree with. And
Hmm.
then we have options. We can either continue to say no and refuse to enforce it and be miserable, or we can say, well, this is a crappy policy. How can I implement it in the best way that is best for the people? How can I yes and this situation?
Hmm.
So, this is how I have really approached my life in the past, few years is whatever happens, I'm just going to yes and it. So this happened, and now what? I'm not going to worry about, oh, I should have done this differently. Oh, how embarrassing. Or, oh, my ex husband is such a jerk, which he is.
So, like with the policy from the CEO, they wrote something up and now it's policy. She would be yes, and it is the policy. We'll do our best to comply with it.
Yeah,
Or
we're going to do our best to comply with it. And I'm going to figure out the best way to help the people. And if it's something that I completely object to, that I figure is immoral or unethical or whatever, then
yes,
my
and we need to go back to the drawing board.
well, and the CEO says, absolutely not, we're going to do this. I either need to get on board or I need to leave the company
Yep. There's
because
always a fine line. Hmm.
it's super destructive to the company. It's um, as one single mom to another. It's like staying in the marriage where the parents are fighting all of the time. It's
And we
super
think we're doing
destructive
the
for the
best for the
children.
kid. Yeah. Hmm. Yep.
And I stayed far longer than I should have to protect the children, which I was actually causing damage to the children because I was having them in a bad environment. If we are like, the CEO and HR, mom and dad, how sexist, right? Maybe. um,
Well,
and
it's true.
it's super damaging to the kids, the employees.
That's true. If you don't have a good CEO connection with the HR, if they're butting heads every single day, it's not a good fit.
And if you're
Not
trying to undermine each other,
yeah, not a good fit.
whatever that policy is, whatever that stupid policy is, you trying to undermine it is going to make it worse for everyone
Yeah,
because
and ultimately leave you in a bad light because you're undermining a direct leadership request, or not even a request. You're just undermining direct leadership, and
yeah,
so it won't be pretty on your resume when they call and say, "Hey, why did this person?" Oh yeah, and so especially in HR. But I
yes,
love it. I actually implement it at my job, the yes and part, because we were getting a yes, but we don't want to. Yes, we could do it better than what you did. Yes, my way's better. Or yes, but this is always the way we've always done it. Mm. We've all heard those things before. Like, no, this is what it is. And we have to change the policy every single time something changes. Policy's not set in stone. It adapts. It moves the way with the industry, with the law, with life. And that's really hard for some people to wrap their hands around that we have to update that policy every single time that it's necessary to change it. So I appreciate that quote and the theology behind it. Well, that is our time today. I told you it'd go fast. I have enjoyed this so much. I now know you. I feel like this is great. This is going to be posted and linked for YouTube video. It'll also be on Apple and Spotify. I've enjoyed our time, Suzanne. Thank you for saying yes to my podcast dream. I just love that we got to connect this way. This is so amazing.
It
I'm
was
so fangirly.
super fun, and good for you for being like, I don't need permission. I'm just
No,
gonna do it.
no, I think I learned in mine. I'll leave on this note for the listeners is that you can be afraid of doing it, but do it afraid and go for the yes, but realize that they say no. It's maybe not no forever. It's no for right now, depending on their season or whatnot. But go for the yes. Don't fear no as a rejection. If you had said no, I would have reached back out in a different season and been like, hey, is this a better time to come on my podcast? Because I really wanted you as a guest. You're on my list. I have a little notebook with people that I want to meet,
Well, I
and
am honored. It was
I
super
love it.
fun.
So, well, thank you for coming on to Unplug with Mel. You have a great rest of your day, and
You too.
happy early happy Halloween. I
Yeah,
love
it's
your
Halloween
shirt.
tomorrow.
Yeah,
Very festive.
very festive and everything. Well, you enjoy your day, Miss Suzanne.
You too.
All right, bye
Bye.
bye.